Good morning, good morning, good morning. David W. Williams, also known as the Real Estate Trader. So what I'm going to discuss today is a laws of game video that eventually will be taken back to the laws of game. Let's say I might keep this up a few days, maybe take it back this afternoon, but want to kind of show you what's in the particular laws of game Patreon platform, give you a kind of preview of what we're doing in that particular platform. And the goal of that platform is to give people things that are going to be actionable so they can start applying it to their real life. So we're talking about the laws of game Patreon platform. If you're looking for the next video, it's the wrong platform for you. If you're looking to get information that you can start to actually apply, it'll be the right place for you. So I want you to understand what audience we don't want and what audience we do want, because what I don't want you to do is be disappointed in spending your money if the next video or the next piece of content is all you're looking for. It is not a volume content platform. It's about giving people actionable information. So we're looking for an audience that actually wants to do the work to improve their situation, because what we're going to talk about is where things are going on in the future, not based on my commentary, but based on government research, based on what is going on in the actual markets, and some of the things that you can do to add more value so you don't end up on the outside looking in this new environment. So we're talking about the laws of game, the secret to adding value in the AI era. And what I want you to understand is that we're going into an environment not based on my commentary, not based on my take, not based on my perspective, not based on having good information, not based on any of that. So you could pull me out of the situation and it's still going to be true. Just like I don't have to tell you 5 times 5 is 25 and 5 times 5 is still going to be 25. So I want you to understand one thing I want to challenge you is that you really need to start examining how your brain works. And is your brain actually working based on what reality actually is, or just some kind of story that you and the people around you believe that has no real sense of reality, right? And how does your brain actually work to take the information around you and come to a conclusion? And I want to really challenge you to start examining that, okay? I want to really do that because I think that can really be my best benefit to you, because I think many of us are operating under stuff that doesn't even make sense. And it's not based on a person that's telling you, you don't need me to tell you that 5 times 5 is 25 for 5 times 5 to be 25. I want you to understand that you don't need me to say that. What I mean by that is that if I never say it, it's still true. So it's not true because I say it. Some things are true because they're true. I want you to really understand that, because we live in a world where people think something is true based on a person that's telling it to them. And that's not always factual. So what we're going to talk about is the secret of adding value in the AI era. Well, why is this really, really important? Because we're going into an era where certain type of job skills are no longer going to be as valuable as they were in the past. And I think that many people that think they're safe are really not as safe as they think they are, because they have not really sat down and examined what value do I really add to my organization? What value do I really add to my clients? You could be a self-employed person. What's the real value that I add to my clients? You work a 9 to 5. How do I really add value to my employer? For years, America existed where you could get just a really basic job and you could have a decent life. And a lot of people are disappointed that no longer really exists for the majority of Americans. I want you to understand it's going to exist less and less, not only for Americans, but for the majority of the world. The majority of the world is going to deal with this stress of automation, a very, very simple task. So we saw there was a particular time in America where they started moving jobs overseas because it was less expensive to employ those people. Those people overseas are going to deal with a lot of issues with artificial intelligence. And we're going to kind of go through some of this and we start looking at some of the jobs that are going to be replaced. However, I think many Americans that think they're safe, they're not as safe as they think they are. Many self-employed people that think they're safe because they believe they have this skill, they're not as good as they think they are. And what's going to happen is artificial intelligence, but really automation of very simple tasks, is going to come through and it's going to make them obsolete, because they have not figured out really, and what we're talking about as a business standpoint, how to be a value add or how to add more value to what you're currently doing. And as a person that's working, you should always be thinking about that. It doesn't necessarily mean do more work, but it does mean add more value. Or you can wait and you can be like these people that are hoping that this politician is going to give them the lifestyle they had 50 years ago, even though that's not going to happen. It will not happen. So I want you to understand this. Again, If you take me out of the equation, 5 times 5 is still going to be 25. That doesn't change because I said it. It doesn't make it true or false because it comes out of my mouth. So if you don't understand that concept of what I just told you, that you can pull me out of it, 5 times 5 is still going to be 25. 1 plus 1 will still be 2. Whether I'm there or not there, that's still going to be true. If you don't understand that concept, that's why you need to be in the Patreon, because you really need to change the way you look at the world. And so that's what I want you to understand. So many people are plagued with this kind of thinking, and it is negatively impacting their ability. And what they want is other people to think like them. And the reason why I struggle with a lot of people is I can't think that way. So here's what I want you to understand. Let me give you a story real quick. You may know who this person is. You may not know who they are, right? But we're talking about really adding a lot of value. And this was way before the artificial intelligence era, but it was in the era of a lot of digital, I would say, processes, right? We're kind of starting in this era. So the left is a group called 9 Inch Nails, okay? You may not know him. You may know him. It's not relevant. On the right is a guy named Jimmy Iovine, right? That's when he was a lot younger. He's made a lot of money in music out there on the West Coast, right? With I think a imprint called Interscope. And so there's a story about where 9 Inch Nails was signed to a label and they started getting a lot of traction. They started having a lot of success. And the founder of the particular group, which is essentially the leader of the group, he decided he no longer wanted to be with that label. And historically, what they do in music is once you are very successful and people find out you no longer want to be where you're currently at, what happens is a lot of people will show up and say, hey, this is what we'll do. We'll get with the lawyers. We'll take it through litigation and we'll try to force them out of the contract. And what they're normally going to do is come to some type of agreement where they'll get some of the back end of the new contract, but we'll come over here, this new label, yada, yada, yada. That's traditionally what they do in these spaces because these people have invested in you. So they're going to want to get compensated for the work that they've done to build you to a certain level. But they're willing to let you go somewhere else because if not, you're not going to make any more music. So nobody makes any money if you stay here. So that's traditionally what is done. So everybody was hitting up the leader of this particular group, 9 Inch Nails, and telling him, hey, we can get you out of that deal and you could come over here with us because we got the best lawyers, yada, yada, yada. Jimmy Iovine understood that's what everybody else is doing. So that's not what I'm going to do. Because why? That's what everybody else is doing. If everybody else is going after this guy telling him, we're going to run the exact same play to get you out of this deal, what makes me any different if I say the exact same thing that everybody else is saying? What he did was he went to the guy and he said, hey, what do you want? What are you looking to get in your new situation? Like, tell me, because I may can get it for you. I may not can get it for you. And the guy said, hey, this is what I want. I want this. I want this. I want this. I want that. What essentially he wanted was his own imprint and the ability to make his own music under his own imprint. And he needed help building out that business. And so what you find sometimes in business is that often when you're with another organization, they sometimes can be hesitant to have you build out your own vertical because they feel like you're going to be competing with us. But sometimes if you're dealing with somebody that's extremely talented, the only way you're going to get them is to let them build out their own thing, give them their own space to operate because that's what they want. And that's what this guy wanted. So he listed to Jimmy, this is what I want. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Jimmy says, okay, let me go get it for you. Then what Jimmy did was he went out there and he worked to get that for him. Jimmy didn't say, well, this is what you need to do to get it. Jimmy didn't say, let's have a strategy session over it. Jimmy says, I'm going to go out and get it. Now, what does that mean? It might not work. Jimmy may go out in the world and try to get what the guy wanted and it might not work. Maybe he can't put the deal together. Jimmy may get what the guy wants and the guy goes and signs with somebody else. That can happen. You never get those hours back, right? All of these things can happen. But what Jimmy understood, the way I add real value to this situation is I come at him from a non-conventional way. I give him a non-conventional offer and I go out there and I get it done for him and bring it back to him. And I say, okay, I got what you want. Now, do you want to move forward? Because Jimmy believed that's how I'm going to separate myself from everybody else that's telling this guy, we're going to get with the lawyers and we're going to force your record label out of the contract. Now, this was taking place in the late 80s, early 90s, I believe. So Jimmy Iovine was showing way back then that he was a non-conventional problem solver. Again, he wasn't just going to tell him, here's how you do it. He wasn't coming to do a strategy session. He was going to do the work and bring the completed work back to you. Let me give you another example of what I'm talking about. Some of y'all not going to remember this because you're not from the Orlando area. So Orlando Magic drafted Shaquille O'Neal out of LSU. He was playing ball for them. He had an option in his contract, and I taught this in all my options courses. They've seen this story where he could get out his contract at a certain year and become a free agent. So Shaq, he exercised his option, which is what we teach. He exercised his option, right? He can do it. He cannot do it. He said, I'm going to do it. What Shaquille O'Neal wanted was to be one of the highest paid players in the NBA. I think he wanted to be the highest paid center, which is going to give him about $100 million deal. The Orlando Magic did not want to pay him that money. They didn't. They wanted to negotiate. They wanted to go back and forth, but they really did not want to set the market where we're going to start paying centers X amount, especially guys that weren't even 30 years old. They just didn't want to pay it. He was going to be making more money than Michael Jordan at that time. Jerry West heard about it, realized the Magic wasn't going to sign it. He went to Shaquille and said, how much money do you want? Shaquille told him, this is what I want. This is the kind of deal I'm looking for. Jerry West told him, let me see what I can do. And he went to Bus and told Bus, if you want to get back to that championship level, you got to bring this dude in. He got Bus to agree to the deal. He went back to Shaquille and said, okay, do you want to sign with us? Bus didn't say, this is what you need to do to get the money. Bus didn't say, well, this is why you shouldn't get the money. Bus didn't say, let's have a strategy session. Bus say, let me go work on the deal. Let me go over here, see, can I put the deal together? And if I can put the deal together, I'm going to get back with you and we're going to have a deal. He put the deal together and they signed Shaquille. I'm from Orlando. I remember when this happened. So I don't listen to people that's not from the city. Shaq did not leave Orlando because he wanted to. His whole family lived in Orlando, including his mama and his sisters. He left because they wouldn't pay him. That's why he left. They wouldn't find his money. And it made no sense to argue with him over the money. Like, I didn't understand it. But I think it's the Voss family, they billionaires, they made a lot of money in business. And so they had a ceiling at which they were going to pay Shaquille O'Neal. And once Shaq asked over the ceiling, it was a no deal. The reason why Jerry West was able to bring him to LA, because Jerry West went and found his money. That's why. He found the money. And so this is what I want you to understand. Jerry West realized my real value is not doing what everybody else is doing. Not saying, hey, let's come to the city and let's do a tour and let's talk about it and try to figure out how we can talk you down off the price. No, my value is I'm going to go find your money for you. Either I can find your money or I can't find your money. But I'm going to try to find your money because why? You told me that's what you wanted. You understand what I'm trying to tell you? So this was mid-90s and Jerry West realized I have to figure out a way to separate myself from the pack because everybody else is going to come out here with the same type of conversation. Let's do the little tour of the city. Let's look at the facilities, yada, yada, like he recruited for college. But that's not what he asking for. He asking for his money. So let me go see, can I find his money? So I need to sell my owner on paying this dude this money. And he was an unproven player. Shaq didn't have no championships. Magic didn't even have no Eastern Conference finals appearances. He was a young dude, unproven, but he wanted a number. So he sold Bus on, if you want to get back to those Magic Johnson, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar years, you got to bring this guy in and you got to pay him what he's asking for. That's just, it is what it is. So he put his rep on the line to bring the man in. A reason why I'm telling you these stories is because I'm trying to show you people that figured out how to add a lot of value to their organization by one, problem solving and thinking in a very unconventional way with no guarantee on the back end. They could have done all this work and the person flaked out at the last moment. It happens. It happens. But the only way you're going to be different in these spaces is if you're willing to do these type of things. That's the only way you put these kind of deals together. They don't come together because there's guarantees, and it doesn't work that way. So that's what we're going to talk about. So we're going back to how to really develop value in the AI era. These men were doing this before the AI era. That's why they added a lot of value. You're in an era now where a lot of the stuff that y'all do to make a living is not going to be valuable in 10 years. It just won't be. Let me explain something to you. Anytime I call either of my insurance companies for customer support work, they're trying to use a bot to answer all my questions so I don't talk to a person. They're asking me to download their app and do all my, I would say, problem solving using the app. So what they're constantly trying to do is get me away from dealing with a person and to use this particular AI bot to solve my problems. What that's going to do is that's going to impact their call centers overseas because why? We don't need those people anymore. If we do need them, we need a lot less than what we currently need. During the pandemic, in real estate, and especially in apartment leasing, where you just could show up and you could pretty much automate your tour. And all those people that worked in apartment leasing, many of them who really don't want to work anyway, they just want to sit down in an air-conditioned office and fake like they're doing something. And they felt like they was getting escape because we don't have to go do tours anymore. I told them that's the worst thing for you, because you know what? You showed that people can get apartments without you. That's going to be the future of apartments. Why do I need to have somebody do tours when somebody can set their own tour up and go walk the apartment themselves? You see the same thing with real estate, with businesses like Open Door. Why do I need an agent? And I say this myself. Why do I need an agent to go walk a house? Let me just set it up with a computer. Why do I need an agent to go walk a house? But what agents have done historically is position themselves between the buyer and the seller. But what value are you adding except the 3% that you want on the sale? If you're not adding any real value, what insight, what problem solving are you involved in? But what agents have been able to do is say, well, you can't get access to view these homes without me, because we go in agent to agent. They kind of broker in the deal, right? But businesses like Open Door say you don't need an agent to do that anymore. So it wasn't, sell by owner that is going to get rid of agents because people thought that was it. No, it's the ability for me as just a regular person in the retail space to be able to go look at homes at a schedule that works for me, as opposed to having to use the agent as the in-between to do everything. Because if they're not adding any real value from an insight standpoint, from a relationship standpoint, if they're not a really, really good negotiator, like we've seen in these two situations, what value are they actually adding to the situation? But they're asking for money at the end of the deal. So this is what I want you to understand. What value do you really add that cannot be replaced by a computer? Not what tasks do I do every day, and I do just enough to where I don't lose my job. No, what value do you really add? Because this is why I think a lot of people struggle when they start becoming self-employed, is because they really have never really figured out how to solve problems and how to organize and how to lead people. So now when they have to do project management, they struggle, because for years their job was, I come in, I do X amount of tasks, I do just enough not to get fired, and I show back up the next day. You can't run no business like that. You won't make any money, because things are going to pop up in your business. I'm dealing with a situation in my business right now with a person I hired to do work, did not do work at an acceptable level. I have to manage that between myself and the platform that is the kind of facilitator of the work that we've done. I have to manage that project. I can't hand it to nobody else. The project has to be managed, and it has to be managed to completion, because I need this work to move to another stage of my business. So it can't just be, I wake up, I do tasks for 8 hours, and I go home, and that's it. That's what I want you to understand. So this is the problem that we're having with people, is that they focus sometimes on the wrong thing. And then as a result, they come up to the wrong conclusion. And so then when you put them in a scenario where you need to focus on the right thing and come to the right conclusion, they can't, because they built their whole life focusing on the wrong thing and coming to the wrong conclusion. So let's go ahead and get into the content real quick. So we went to AI, said, what jobs will AI replace over the next 10 years? Jobs will replace highly repetitive, data intensive, and low empathy tasks. Those are going to be the most susceptible to replacement by AI over the next decade. So if you are working, what about your job is highly repetitive, data intensity, or low empathy? Here's some of the jobs: administrative and clerical roles, data entry, bookkeeping clerks, receptionists and secretaries, proofreaders and copy editors. Okay. So if you're in data entry, you're doing bookkeeping, you're a receptionist, you're a secretary, so you work some type of clerical role, proofreaders and copy editors, these jobs are under threat to be replaced by AI. Customer service and telemarketing, customer service reps, I talked about before. Pretty much every time I'm dealing with anything dealing with customer service, they're trying to push me to a bot. Okay. So they really don't want those people. Telemarketers, financial and insurance agents. So if all you're going to do as an insurance agent is work up a bunch of quotes, why do I need you? Because I can get a bot to do that now. But for a very long time, a lot of insurance agents, all they did was just work up a bunch of quotes for you and just hand you the quotes. Well, if you can't give me any insight on Well, what are you looking for in insurance? Yada, yada. All you're doing is just working up quotes. I can do that with a bot. Transportation and manufacturing. I think autonomous vehicles are way, way off. But I think once they figure it out, it's going to change logistics. I just think they're way, way off. But I do know that once they actually figure it out, it's going to change logistics. Because why? Most people can't drive. We're talking about to be a driver. You get licensed one time and you never really have to get certified the rest of your life. There's no review of your certification. So it's going to take difficult to figure out driving and logistics. But once they figure it out, it's going to change manufacturing. It's just not going to happen as fast as people think it is. Then we know that the manufacturing and assembly line work, that they're going to replace those. Let's talk about creative and knowledge-based roles, copywriters, journalists. I think at a certain level of low-level content, that's going to happen. Anybody that understands SEO, they've been using what we call spinners for years to produce content, market research and analysts, and then entry-level legal assistants and paralegals. Here's what it means for workers: creative and strategic thinking, high-level creative direction and strategic planning will remain a human domain. So that's what I want you to understand. Empathy, interpersonal skills, those roles are going to be safest from AI. Nurses, therapists, social workers, complex problem solving and critical thinking. Jobs that require addressing ambiguous, unstructured problems are less susceptible to automation. This is why I always hammer on you what you get caught on. Many of you think you're adding value by criticizing. You're adding value by problem solving. Let me explain something to you, and I want you to understand this because many of you may not be at a level of business to where this has happened to you. You do not add value to an organization by finding something wrong if you do not have a solution. I'm going to repeat myself. You do not add value to an organization by finding something wrong if you don't have a solution. Then if you have a solution, what you now have to do is you have to own the solution and sell people on the solution and work your way all the way through the solution to show people that I just don't have an idea for a solution. I'm going to show you how the solution actually works to make things better. Many of you think your value add in a situation is I just find things wrong. That's not how you add value. You add value by finding things wrong, coming up with a solution, and then implementing the solution all the way through. That's how you add value. The problem I currently have in my business, I don't add value to my business by finding what the person did wrong. I add value to my business by finding what they did wrong, solving it, and working it all the way through. At the end of this, the problem has to be solved. So this is what I want you to understand. Many of you have been, because of a lot of the communities that you exist in, a lot of these online spaces where everybody just gets on here and complains for 5 hours about nothing, right? A lot of these online spaces where you just pick things apart, but you never come up with a solution. You think that's your real value because that's how you get attention on the internet. That's how you feel like you contributed to a situation. No, that's not how you add value to an organization. If you find the problem, you need to have a solution. If you have a solution, you need to own the solution and work your way through it. So ask the people that you're working for, can I lead in implementing this change in the business? If you're at a business to where they don't want to hear anything you got to say, you're in the wrong place. Because these type of really monotonous routine tasks are going to be automated out. So you need to look at your job and say, if I'm just in a place to where I just do a bunch of routine tasks, I'm not able to provide solutions, I'm not able to problem solve, I'm telling you over the next decade, they're going to get you out of there. Because if I can just have a robot do what you're doing, because I don't care about your feedback anyway, it doesn't matter. So that's what I want you to understand. Creative and strategic thinking. Many people struggle with this. Complex problem solving and critical thinking. Many people struggle with this. Empathy and interpersonal skills. I spend all my time on the internet. I don't talk to people in real life. I don't know how to sit down and talk to people, right? But that's where you're really going to add the value. Your value just talking on the computer is not going to be as valuable because we're going to have a computer talking on the computer. When you call a lot of these Fortune 500 companies, their back-end service provider is a bot. I do business with Teachable. When I first started doing business with Teachable, you could go in and you could speak to somebody live through their chat. Now, when you go into Teachable, their chat is a bot. Then you can leave a message. Somebody will email you. They fired all their live support staff. They fired them. When I first started doing business with Stripe, this was a long time ago. You would go to Stripe customer service. They would call you back immediately. Now Stripe's customer service is a bot. Then if the bot can't solve your problem, they'll put you on the phone, which means what? They streamline a lot of their customer service. So when you are just used to talking to people on the internet, you don't know how to speak to people properly, you don't have good conversational skills. Well, why do I need you then? Because if I do need somebody to talk on the phone, or I do need somebody to be forward-facing customer service, you're no good at it. I don't need you to do any of these other tasks because I can get a robot to do it. So why do I need you? So I want you to really understand what is really adding value in this real world. And so these communities that we've kind of nurtured on the internet of people that really can't get their life together, it's just going to get worse and worse for them. The internet has made a lot of money off these people. The problem is that they're not going to have no money to give to anybody over the next 5 to 10 years because they haven't developed themselves in this particular economy to where they can add a lot of value. So let's keep going. So here's a report done by Bernie Sanders talking about AI. And so Bernie Sanders, ranking member of the Senate Health, Education, Labor, and Pensions Committee, talked about how artificial labor can impact workers and their livelihoods. So according to ChatGPT-based model, artificial intelligence and automation can replace nearly 100 million jobs over the next 10 years, including around 90% of fast food and counter workers, 64% of accountants, and 47% of truck drivers. In May, the CEO to OpenAI warned that AI can lead to the loss of half of all entry-level white-collar jobs, spiking unemployment to 10 to 20% in 1 to 5 years. In 2023, McKinsey estimated that AI technologies had the potential to automate work activities that absorb 60 to 70% of employees' time to day. So Bernie Sanders, he's putting out this particular report because what they want the presidential administration is to do stuff to offset this, because Bernie Sanders supposedly is worker focused. So they want to try to figure out how can we offset this? Really, it's going to be retraining people. America has not decided that we're going to turn people into technologists. I think America should be a land of technologists. And when I say technologists, I don't mean people that just work in on computers all day. I mean, in whatever field you're in, you're leveraging technology to be successful at that field. America has not decided to invest in American workers that way, so it is what it is. We'll rather immigrate people instead of developing people in that particular area. But this is a particular report they put out. I may link it in the description where they're asking for the presidential administration to do more to try to deal with this problem of AI replacing people. I talked about in a live talk with the traders yesterday that I believe that the next president is going to accelerate this even further, because we know Trump got 3 more years. He's out. I believe the next president is going to accelerate this change even further. We're starting to see a lot of capital investment in AI, even in companies that have proven nothing. But there's so much investment in it because everybody believes it's going to be the next big thing. So now we're going to go into some of the takeaways, right? Because the goal is to give you things to do. Okay. Here's the question. If you work a 9 to 5, you work for an organization, can you be held responsible for results in the organization? So you're in an organization. Can we hold you responsible for results? Because what many people want to do is they want to come to work and get paid, but they don't want to be responsible for anything. I talked about this before. Difference between the quarterback and the wide receiver. Why? Quarterback's responsible for how the offense actually performs. They're also responsible for the success of the team, but they're directly responsible for the performance of the offense. So what are you responsible for in the organization? Can you be held responsible for anything? Are you just coming to work, doing your job, and going home? That's cool, but it means your job is more at risk because why? You're not responsible for nothing. So what value do you really add? Because the days of I just show up, I do XYZ for 8 hours, and I make $70,000 a year with benefits, like you in Cleveland, Ohio in the 80s, those days is over with. They're not coming back either. I don't care what Trump tells you. It's not about Trump. I'm just telling you how the world works. It's not coming back. So the way you really add value is what are you responsible for? Now, your family may not allow you to do that because of your family situation. You may not want to stress. That's cool. But these are the things that you got to think about. We start talking about adding value to an organization. The days of you just showing up, doing 1, 2, 3, trying to figure out how I'm not going to lose my job and thinking I'm going to make $80,000 a year, those days are over with. Next one, can you lead groups of creatives on a project and be responsible for the results? So here's the question. Can you manage a group of creative people and be responsible for the results that the group is producing? Do you have that ability? Because again, now you got to go to problem solving, not just identifying problems. So let me give you an example of what I'm talking about. We're going to go back to the main slide. Okay, so you got a really, really successful group, right? Okay. Really successful group called the Police. Some of y'all not gonna remember them, you're too young. Some of y'all not into this type of music. It's cool. So really, really successful group called the Police. Okay. Sting in the middle, he decides at the peak of the success of the group, I don't want to do this anymore. So at the peak of their success, they break up. How do you manage this situation? Whether you're the manager of the group, whether you are the A&R at the label, at that time you still had A&Rs, right? Or you're the CEO of the label and you signed this particular group. How do you manage this situation? So you got a group of creative people, they're very productive, they're doing their thing, and they now say, well, you know what? We don't want to do this anymore. How do you manage it? How do you solve this problem? Because you're going to be responsible for the results of the situation. So these are the things that you want to think about. We start talking about adding value, because we talked about what is going to really add value. Creative thinkers, strategic thinkers, problem solvers, people really good in interpersonal skills, people call emotional intelligence. So you're dealing with people that are more on the creative side. How do you manage those type of people and then start being responsible for those type of results? Next one. Can you develop ways to add value in a very binary service industry? This is really, really important. I think artificial intelligence is going to literally decimate financial services. I really do. I think most people working in financial services had a great run. The run is pretty much over. The run will be over for the end of the decade for the majority of it. That's why a lot of them trying to do YouTube and all kind of stuff, because they're trying to figure out how they're going to make them some money. Because if I'm dealing with an accountant and all they're doing is put my stuff inside a spreadsheet, and then I'm not really getting any value from them because they're not saving me a whole bunch of money, right? Because, you know, when you self-employed, you're not trying to get money back. You're just not trying to pay out. They're not saving me a whole bunch of money, but I'm doing all my record keeping, right? I'm doing all my record keeping. I'm organizing everything, right? Well, I can get a program to do that. And we will be able to create programs that are robust enough to understand all the tax codes, understand all the tax laws. They'll be dynamic enough to be able to manage those particular changes and show me where I'm getting benefit from and where I'm not getting benefit from. So if you're an accountant and you don't understand how to really manage relationships, improve your value, what do I need you for? I know a person right now, they and their husband make good money. They have an accountant. They're like, this accountant isn't really helping me because why? They're not really showing me how I'm saving money at the end of the year. I'm just paying them to do my taxes. Same thing with financial advisors. Most financial advisors are putting people in a 60-40 fund. A computer can do that. They're not doing anything a computer can't do. They're just putting you in a 60-40 fund. So again, we talked about the real estate agent. They're not adding any kind of consultative or consulting value to where here's what makes me different than every other financial advisor. What makes you a good financial advisor, not the fact that you passed the test, is that you can solve the problems of your client. But if we're going to turn this into a commodity, well, the cheapest way to get it done is just to go to a computer. So when you're talking about these very binary service industries, you really need to start asking yourself, what value do you add outside of the actual service work that you're doing? Because if it's just about the service work, we can get a computer to do that. So then what do we need you for? And so, but for years, these spaces, especially in the finance space, were able to take advantage of people's ignorance around the space. Well, people just didn't know anything. But now, because everything can be templated, most people do not have complex taxes. Their life is not set up that way. Most people don't have multiple streams of income bringing in large amounts of money. Their life is not set up that way. So why am I paying this person X thousands per year? And I'm essentially doing all the record keeping and doing all the bookkeeping myself. And they're not really adding any real value to my situation. I can just use a computer. That's why TurboTax blew up. Even though TurboTax is a data mining site, the average consumer doesn't know TurboTax is a data mining site. They know that TurboTax was doing what H&R Block was doing, but I don't have to pay H&R Block anymore. That's why TurboTax blew up. So they don't care that TurboTax is really just a big data mining site. They don't care that their information is being sold. All they care about is I'm able to get the same refund and I don't have to pay H&R Block. And I don't have to even go to H&R Block anymore. I can just do it at home. So what I want you to understand is that if you have a very binary service that you provide, what makes what you do different that adds a lot of value that can't be automated out? Let's keep going. Are you a creative problem solver that can finish projects? Really, really important. Do you finish projects? I don't even care if you're not even successful. It's like doing experiments in a lab. The goal of doing experiments in a lab is not about us coming up with the answer we want. The question is, can we go all the way through the experiment? Are you a creative problem solver that can finish projects? Many people can give you ideas. Many people can start things. They can't finish anything. I did a real estate project now almost a year ago in another state. I was not successful in the real estate project, but you know what I did do? I worked it from start to finish. Wasn't successful, was trying to create a market out there. Wasn't successful in creating the market. But what I did do is I worked it from start to finish. While I was in the middle of that project, I didn't come up with an idea for another project. I worked that project from the beginning all the way to the end of the project. That's how you learn how to do projects. Are you a creative problem solver that can finish projects? Not, I'm a creative problem solver. I can generate a whole bunch of ideas, but now we start getting through the work of the project. Now I want to jump to something different. You can't do that. You got to finish the project, whether it's successful or not. So that's what I want you to understand. Again, many of you have been programmed to focus on the things that are really not that important, that don't add real value. If you are an artist, can you complete a project? The police are not the police if they can't make albums. If they always are starting music, but they can't never finish the music, they're not the police. They're just a bunch of dudes that can make music but never finish it. A lot of artists have that issue. The song never gets made. You got to make songs. You got to actually finish the song, and then you got to submit it so we got something to take to market. So the police are not the police if they don't never make the song. So we don't have all that good music from them on the internet if they can't make the songs. One thing about them, they can actually finish the song. A lot of artists, a lot of creative people cannot finish projects. So we never really get what they can produce because why? They can't finish nothing. They start something, they work on it for 3 weeks. I was inspired to do this new thing. They start that, they can never get themselves together like that. So that's a problem that they have. Sometimes that can be managed, sometimes it cannot be managed. And so for the ones that cannot be managed, they just fall by the wayside. You understand what I'm trying to tell you? So you got to ask yourself, are you a creative problem solver that can finish a project? Not we in the middle of the project and you find something else you want to go do, and then you go jump on that, but we never finish the project. Because now you left everybody else that's working on the project. They're trying to figure out what the hell you're doing. So you got to really ask yourself, again, we've been taught to focus on the wrong thing. Can you create environments that promote problem solving from start to finish? Again, can you create an environment to where we can go in here and solve this problem from start to finish? Not, I am disturbing the environment to where problems can't get solved. Or I'm creating unnecessary distractions to where the problems can't get solved. Because if all you can do is create environment, you can be very successful. That was WeWork's whole goal. In fact, it's a WeWork downtown Atlanta. I just saw it the other day. I didn't even think they were still open. They still got one downtown Atlanta. WeWork's whole value proposition was environment creation. I can create an environment where problem solvers can actually function and become successful. They just create environment. Many of us are environment destroyers. We're environment destroyers. We create the environment and then we destroy the environment that we created. So the problem solvers and the creators are like, I can't do this anymore. Because why? It's too much going back and forth. You might have never heard this term. It does happen in the creative space where people say, I can't work like this. Why? Because this environment is negative to what I'm trying to do. I can't work like this. I can't do this. This doesn't work. And people that don't come out of the creative space don't know what that means. It means that this environment is like, I can't do anything in this environment. It's not conducive to me being successful. So a way in which you can manage people and be successful with creators is you just figure out how to create environment. I talked to this years on the older Patreon. There was a situation where Glorilla was going through the club. I think this was in Oakland. And like something happened where like they threw water on her. They tried to hit her or whatever. I said, I would never in a million years have Glorilla in there. She ain't going to be in there. Because why? I don't want my artists getting thrown off with these people out here, with these rough folks out here in Oakland. I know what they get into in Oakland. They rough. I don't want to get thrown off. So unless it was a walkthrough and she was getting paid to do it, I don't want you in it. I might not even want you doing walkthroughs because the show money is so good. We don't even need that money. It's not worth the risk. I would never let my artist go to a restaurant because why? I don't want the waiter who's having a bad day throw my artist off. You want some food? We'll bring it to you. My job is to create an environment to where you can solve the problem we have, which is what? I need you doing shows, making music. That's the problem. So that's all you got to worry about. Anything you need, I'm going to have it brought to you. I don't want you out here around these people because a lot of these people got bad attitudes and they're going to be mad that you got it going on and they don't. So they're going to try to make sure you have a bad day like they having a bad day. So I got to create an environment for that. So if you look at the NWA movie, was really a vanity piece for them. But one thing we did see that was actually accurate, that Suge Knight was terrible about creating environment. He created the worst environment for people. He created an environment that brought the worst out of folks. So that's why everything spiraled out of control, because he did not know how to create environment. So he was successful in solving Dre's problem, but he was terrible at creating environment. So that led to the downfall of what they was doing. Because he got Tupac gangbanging. Like, this is ridiculous. But he was not good at creating environment for creators. So that's what I want you to understand. If you just can create environment, you can make yourself a big value add. But if you can't, you'll destroy the people that are trying to work in the environment. And they'll start telling you, I can't work like this. And you'll think it's you without realize it's not about you personally. It's about the environment that has been created. And a lot of people struggle with that because they don't talk to the creators. They try to guess, and you don't need to guess. You need to go talk to the creator and figure out, what do you need to work? Go Google, if you get a chance, what a writer is for entertainers. And what entertainers often tell people, if you want me to do a show here, here's what I need backstage for me to be comfortable for my show. I'm old enough to remember when it was weed and liquor and all kind of stuff. Now it's food because you can't bring that type of stuff in. But back in the day, you know, people like, man, I need an ounce of that real good. I need some Jack Daniels. They want some girls back there. That's what they wanted to do the show, because you create an environment. So you have to understand, it may not be that extreme because we're talking about music. We're talking about a different era. But what I'm telling you is that being able to just create an environment that allow problem solvers to be successful, that allow strategic thinkers, that allow creators to be successful, that can add a lot of value. And not being able to do it can destroy value. Last one, if you cannot, you would depend on other people to solve these problems for you. So what we always talked about, if you cannot solve the problems of your group, if you can't figure it out, you're going to depend on other people to solve those problems. And then your ability to enjoy it is based on their desire to solve those problems for you. Many people are not going to solve problems better for you and you're outside of their group than they will solve for people in their own group. And many of you think you're inside somebody's group and you're not. You're just there. You're not in their group. That's why your problem's not getting solved. You're just there. So if you can't sit down and start changing the way you think about a lot of this stuff and saying, okay, how can we start doing this and being a lot more effective at it? These problems will continue to exist. And then now you're going to need somebody else to solve them. But they're not going to solve the problems for your group as well as they solve the problems for their group. That's just how this world works. You're not dealing with benevolent people in this world. That's not what they are. Their history has shown you that. So that's what we're going to do in the laws of the game. This is the type of stuff we talk about in the Patreon. This is a lot longer than most of the Patreon videos I produced. Sometimes I'll be on Patreon. I do a 15-minute video because why? It don't take a long time to get to the point for me. I'm doing this longer because this is a different environment. YouTube, I normally talk longer. If you come into the Patreon, you might get a 15-minute video. If you need somebody talking to you for 2 hours, I'm the wrong person for you. Because I don't think you need 2 hours. You need to get to work. That's what I want you to understand. So this is the value. We're going to read these super chats. We're going to read some of these comments. We're going to get up out of here. So big up to Miss Alexander. Appreciate the $4.99 super chat. Big up to Miss Phoenix 91 for gifting somebody a membership. A lot of alpha in the membership. Top end people told y'all about that DraftKings. We going into the markets real quick. DraftKings better figure this poly market out. That's another thing, artificial intelligence. Let's see how artificial intelligence starts impacting sports wagering. Right? Let's see that. Because it's nothing but a math problem anyway. Good sports wagers, they just do a math. It's all about math. Right? So poly market is now artificial intelligence. Sports wagering going in artificial intelligence. DraftKings better figure it out. They're going to keep losing value, especially once this football season over. What's going on to Jay Preston? Came through the event. Big up to Chicagoland area. I just talked to my people up there the other day, make sure they were straight. All that foolishness going on up there. Corporate Checks TV, man. Appreciate it. Patreon worth of value. Most deaf. You know what I'm saying? What's up to Miss Brandy Williams? Big up to Miss Brandy. What's up going on, Miss Farida James? Been down for a minute. What's going on, Miss Evelyn Hill? Ain't seen you in a minute. Big up to Miss Evelyn Hill. She came to the first event with the she had on the Hawks gear. Was it the Hawks or the Falcons? I think it was the Falcons gear. She had on the Falcons gear. So big up to the Falcons. I think they finally got them a little winning, and they was on a bye last week. The coach used to coach in Tampa Bay. Side note. What's going on in Dallas? Yes, ma'am. So Miss Phoenix, it used to be to where this is what I used. So I would open up my Teachable. You know, I got the back office because I got a particular paid plan with them. And then if I had a question, you could just go to the chat and they would immediately link you with somebody in support. What they're doing now is telling you to leave a message. And if the bot can't answer it at that moment, they'll email you back. It used to be you could do live chat or just leave an email based on whichever one worked for you. It's not as easy now to get to a live person on Teachable anymore. And so that's just where we're going. Pretty much everybody now, business that I'm dealing with, it's almost impossible to get to somebody live. Like you got to sit there and ask for an agent like 6 times. Then they'll finally be like, okay, I'll get you an agent. Credit card company, not as bad, but both insurance companies, it's like almost impossible to get to the agent, especially my health insurance. Like it's almost impossible to get to a live person. And a lot of businesses that I call now, it's just everything's just been automated out. And that's just going to, in my opinion, going to continue to get more and more commonplace. Full place. Use the AI to create bots for bets. Yeah, it's already going on right now. Like, there's nowhere in the world I think any serious gambler is not using some type of first, you're using a model. Serious gamblers use a model. So they're not already using some type of model, using some type of computer-generated computation. It's the ham and eggers that are using just, you know, I got a feel or whatever. Like lines, though, people got to understand lines. Let me give you an example. I think Miami played Florida. It was -4. They was giving away money. I don't gamble on sports. If I did, I would have put $10,000 on that. Who didn't think that Miami was going to beat Florida by more than 4? Right? Now, that's just my own discernment. But a computer could have told me that. Like, there's no way in the world that Miami was not going to beat Florida by more than 4 points. So they was giving money away with that line. Now, because Miami's 5-0, everything's going to be so wide. The lines are going to be so wide. Now it's going to be hard to find a good edge where you can be putting up a lot of money to win a little bit of money. But that -4 Miami, Florida, that was ridiculous. They was giving away money there. So you're going to use, I'm not talking about you personally, but people are going to use bots, but really use some type of automation, some type of data generation to figure out what games have the most opportunity to win. It's very similar to, if you watch Casino the beginning and they tell you about Rothstein, what made him so good, it's because he had all the information that allowed him to get the edge. He knew what the best games were because he had all the information. So that's what I'm trying to tell you, is that I just think that's where we're going. You say what regulations are going to be placed on AI. How would they know? So how can you place a regulation on something that you're not aware of? Right. So I just think it doesn't matter, because how can somebody stop me from doing something in my home that they're not aware that I'm doing? So I don't think there's going to be any regulation on it. Couldn't bet on Crawford Canelo. I feel you. It may depend on the state that you're in. So we ain't going to be here too long, man. Like I said, I want to shoot this out this morning if I got to get to the rest of my work. Y'all be safe, man. So like, this wasn't a Patreon. Somebody says, where's the Patreon link? It'll be in the community post. I'll start posting it. I'll start promoting more as we get to the end of the year. It'll be in the community post. But there's videos on the channel that'll take you to the Patreon. Y'all stay safe, man. Stay encouraged. Talk to you later.